welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Excited to talk to you about Mars's ingress into the sign of Leo. In this video, we're going to take a look at all of the obstacle course that Mars is going to be going through over the next few weeks. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to touch on where Mars will be transiting for each and every one of the 12 signs, along with tarot predictions. If you like my channel, make sure you click the button below and you're subscribed. And if you're new here, leave me a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. Sharing is caring, so please do consider sharing this video. Any interaction with the channel really helps the channel grow, even if it's just a simple thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And if you guys like my content, you can check out, we have donation-based readings on Friday nights. We've also got horoscopes on the channel and memberships if you want to support my work and you like the content that I'm putting out. It's always appreciated. So we're going to be taking a look at Mars's transit through the sign of Leo. It's pretty fair to say, looking at the astrology of this summer of 2023, it is going to be action-packed. So this is one of the first planets to move through Leo, which is kind of a big deal, right? Now that we have Pluto in Aquarius, and the nodes are also in the early degrees of the fixed signs, Mars's ingress is very, very loud. So if you happen to be a fixed sign, especially if you're anywhere from about 3 to 5 degrees, it's going to be a little bit more action-oriented. Man, not even 3. Let's just say 0 to 5. The first 5 degrees of the fixed sign. So Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Or if you have any planetary placements there, you're really going to feel the pressure of that cross. But before I get into all of those details, let's take a look at the dates that Mars is going to be transiting the sign of Leo. And it's going to be starting on May the 20th, so in just a couple days. And it will be moving through that sign until July 10th of 2023. So generally we see Mars stay in a sign for a little bit over, maybe about a month and a half before making it to the next sign. So if you guys think back to the summer of 2021, that was the last time that we had Mars going through the sign of Leo. Really helpful for the fire signs. So if you have early degrees of Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, you guys will be experiencing trines. Air signs, it's going to be beneficial, especially for Gemini and Libra. A little bit more challenging for you, Aquarius, and for the water and the earth signs. Not that it's not important, but it's not making as many aspects. So you have to stay tuned and hear how it's playing out for you guys at the end of this video. And when Mars enters into Leo, it's going to be first at 0 degrees, and it will span from 0 to 29 degrees between pretty much May and July. And Mars is moving into a fixed fire sign. So Leo is known as the 5th sign of the zodiac. Fixed fire burns, right? It's stubborn, it's active, creative, playful, and prideful. So it's holding the energy of what has already been initiated since Cancer season. I don't know about you guys, but Mars being in the sign of Cancer these last few weeks has kind of felt like a wet blanket. So it's going to be nice to see Mars move into a fire sign where it's going to have a little bit more pizzazz. And Leo, right? The sign of Leo associated with the entertainment industry, romance, love affairs, confidence, self-expression, creativity, children and parenthood. While off the bat, the first few days is going to be loud, partially because it's not just the Mars opposition to Pluto, right? Because we see Mars in a 100-degree angle to Pluto, but Mars is also still being squared by Jupiter. So lots of fixed energy in the skies. It's basically representing an uncomfortable turning point. Now, squares represent a lot of power. It gives everybody a little bit of grit. So many of us are experiencing these Mars, Pluto, Jupiter squares as a moment of really having to step up, having to take some kind of action. A lot of it also is going to deal with our beliefs or our philosophy revolving around our self-esteem, our personal values, our resources, and whether or not it's pushing us, if crisis, right, the opportunity to act. So lots of very unusual astrology. I really kind of look at the transits from, you know, the last 10 days of May into early June as some of the most action-packed astrology for the year. One of the top transits, definitely the Jupiter-Pluto-Mars square. If you're just looking at the squares, or just the planets, Jupiter is the focal point of a fixed T-square, but I like to take the nodes into consideration. So whether you see this as a opportune moment for growth, or you see this as a crisis in action, giving us the opportunity to act, to possibly take chances that may materialize as us having lots of opportunity for abundance and material and physical growth. Now, Mars is a challenging planet, right? So planets are going to have a certain archetype. The sign that it's in is almost the filter and the lens that we're going to view it through. So Mars has connections to being, you know, active and assertive. It's about courage, passion, sexuality, but it's also about conflict, leadership, physical strength, and sometimes acts of war. So as we see Mars, which is an archetype of like the warrior going through the sign of Leo, it is going to be expressing itself as bold, courageous, creative, dramatic, you know, opportunities for expression. I do think that it means well, even in spite of some of the more challenging aspects. And when we see planets that square the nodes, which is really what's setting up over this first few days of the transit, we have an opportunity to move from past kind of hang-ups and conditions and how we've always done things because of the squares to the south node, or move collectively into our future and have an opportunity to go deeper into the north node, which in the sign of Taurus is about love, it's about abundance, it's about resources, it's about life, and also pleasure in the six senses. So something that I have been encouraging my clients to think about, and something that I'm going to start, you know, bringing into these videos this summer is, what do you believe your value is, right? What can your actions create? What is your contribution to this revolution that's going on in the world? Is it going to be bold, courageous acts? Is it going to be standing up for someone or something? Is it going to be creating, you know, a movie script or a memoir? Is it going to be painting or sculpting or creating something? This is how Mars in Leo is going to better utilize this energy, so it's not stirring up as much drama as is expected. And this will affect everybody differently. So I just want to say this is where it really pays to know your natal astrology, so you can apply the transits over your natal chart. If you do not know how to do that, just listening to your rising sign horoscope or any of the predictions is really helpful, because it's going to tell you which house Mars is moving through. But also, if that's challenging, do consider consulting an astrologer. You know, I'm happy to see you if you want to book a reading with me, and do consider getting a reading, especially if you have any planets within like the first 5 degrees of Leo, or any of the fixed signs really, because it's going to be impacting you during this time. Now, when we look at Mars going through the sign of Leo, something that we're going to be taking a look at throughout these next few weeks is we're going to be constantly checking in with the sun, okay? Because Leo is ruled by the sun, so the sun will be the dispositor of the Mars and Leo transit. It's going to have this solar disposition, right? Because Leo is traditionally this very you know, charismatic, very regal, royal, creative, bold, playful, theatrical type of energy. So we're constantly checking in with the sun. And off the bat, the ingress chart is incredibly interesting, because not only do we have this grand fixed energy that's setting up this challenge to an opposition of Pluto, a square or a growing pain from Jupiter, but we have a sun at 29 degrees. Now, it'll be nice to see the sun's ingress into Gemini, because for about a day or two, we're going to see the sun sextile Mars. So as we go into Gemini season, it's going to be a very different vibe. Things aren't going to feel as heavy or sluggish. We're going to start to move around a little bit more, communicate, share, travel, learn a little bit more easily. And it'll be nice to see that air and fire fuel each other. So the more that we're being curious and we're opening our mind to different ideas and we're sharing, the more that we can kind of be off to the races with some of our heart's desires, and we can really act on that. So throughout these next few weeks, as you're watching my videos, or if you're looking at transits in, an ephemeris, or if you're studying transits using your software, it's really important to take into consideration the Saturn transits. Because the sun is going to go into Gemini, and it's going to come into a square with Saturn. It's also going to come into a trine with Pluto, really referencing the need to sometimes still stop, slow down, think about things, and be open to making change. And so I think the way that we embrace change these next few weeks is meant to be creatively. I think it's also about creating more time for joy, for our passions, for playtime, and for the things that we love. So like I said, we've got an immediate grand fixed cross. It's playing off of what has already been a Jupiter square Pluto and a Jupiter conjunct the North Node. Because this is happening, these signs are all financial. Taurus deals more with like banks and, resources and anything revolving around the markets, and then we have the 5th house, which can be more kind of speculative, taking risks with those markets, and what perhaps we're investing ourselves into. And then Scorpio is going to deal more with like debt and money owed, and also taxes. And then Aquarius is also going to be dealing with, power revolving around all of these resources and the groups that oversee the money that we make, the spending that we have. It's also going to be a hot topic, learning about how some of these changes that are coming with Pluto and Aquarius are as a result of some shifts in, political direction. Whether this is where we're going for future elections all over the world, how certain political parties or politicians are, forming their platforms revolving around what's going on in the banking systems. And I do think that there is going to be a huge theme revolving around creatives, right? Mars in Leo is going to bring up the theme of creatives or self-employed people. It's going to be about performers. It's going to be about artists and younger people. So it's going to be interesting to see younger creative individuals really kind of come into this space where there are going to be little mini archetype of Mars. And there's pros and cons to each and every one of the signs and each and every one of the planets. I have to say something I'm not thrilled about, seeing with some of these aspects off the bat is the oppositions to Pluto, because we are going to see some very almost do or die situations out in the world. We are going to see some combative and confrontational situations, especially revolving around younger people or children in politics, or children are going to play a huge role in some of the themes in politics. We're also going to hear a lot more about, I think, fertility and whether or not we're facing what may be in some parts of the world, a crisis revolving around population. And so I think more is going to come up about this. Obviously, Aquarius is going to be more scientific in anything revolving around the future. And Leo is going to be more about, what is creative and what the heart wants. And so it's safe to say with some of these oppositions and also the squares to Jupiter that there's a lot of people that are really going to be looking at what it is they desire. Whether that's, I wish I could launch my own business. I wish I could plan a vacation and take my kids. I wish I could have more free time to be able to paint and draw and create. And so we're going to feel challenged because of some of the, things that are going on in the world and some of the things that are also going on for us as a collective, right? As a society. With Pluto and Aquarius, society is changing, it's transforming. And so with some of these declines that we're seeing in the world right now, it can serve as an opportune moment for people to feel incredibly inspired and hopeful. And in the face of some of these more kind of dire situations, the willingness to come together and create. And I do think it's going to create almost like a renaissance in the theatrical world, in movies, in music, in performances. So I do think something good is going to come of this. I also feel like just being humans, we're very resistant to change, right? So are the fixed signs. The fixed signs don't want to change. They want to keep doing the same thing. So when we see these squares, we're going to feel pressure and we're going to realize that it's going to be so much easier to evolve and get out of our own way and find new, creative, fun ways to become more grounded, right? The squares from Mars to the North Node in Jupiter in Taurus is saying, how can we turn eating or, producing or providing for ourselves, how can we make that more fun, right? How can we make gardening fun? How can we include younger people or children in on that? And how can they be a part of also creating that change in the world? It's literally archetypally connected to Taurus and also Leo. But it also might be about incentivizing younger people to want to stand up and push back against some of the things going on in the world politically, some of the decisions that are being made by political figures that are going to impact their future and also their children's future. And I think it's going to be a lot of younger people getting involved in what's going on in the banking and the financial world, and kind of standing up and saying enough is enough. I do also think a lot about the incoming Venus retrograde that we're going to be having in July. And in July, when Venus turns retrograde in the late degrees of Leo, she will go retrograde all the way through these degrees that Mars is going to be moving through. So in some ways, I'm wondering, is Mars this very scrappy, kind of egotistical, boastful energy that comes in and kind of, roughs up some situations or causes some conflicts with friends or kind of creates some dramas? And, Venus has to retrograde back throughout July and August and go and kiss the bruises and kind of make up for some of the quarrels that Mars may potentially create. Because Mars has a number of challenging aspects that it will be having throughout its transit. Oppositions and squares to fixed signs are not fun, and we know that squares and oppositions do represent a challenging energy. Off the bat, an opposition is very similar to that of a full moon. So really big energy that's going to be about how we relate to the opposite sign. So you have to look at where Leo is in your chart, where Mars is. It's starting off first with kind of just initiating something, and upon initiating something in that area of your life, it will immediately square Pluto. So it's going to create some kind of crisis or drama for another person or another situation in your life or another dynamic in your life, and it's also going to square Jupiter. And we know that Jupiter makes everything bigger. So that's why this is so complex. That's why I've made so many separate videos for you guys. I really wanted to talk about the Jupiter-Pluto, and then I wanted to talk more about the Mars-Pluto archetype, which is more, I think, going to be bringing some, confrontational, war-ridden energies. I don't like saying that, but because Pluto is always known to kind of fight dirty, or it's about exposing the underworld, we're going to see how Mars coming into that opposition in the square to Jupiter is going to be some very strong reactions revolving around the corruption that's going on out in the world, and especially with groups and political figures in big business. As it squares Jupiter, it's going to be revolving around who gets the resources. Something I've been learning a lot about throughout the last 2 weeks or so is I've been listening to stuff that's been going on in the United States revolving around the debt ceiling, and learning about the difference between bailouts and bail-ins when it comes to the banks, and realizing that in so many ways the system is so incredibly broken, and many of us just deposit our paychecks or we deposit money into the banks, not realizing that the banks are utilizing our resources to be able to make other investments. That's why it's taking so long to transfer funds back and forth sometimes. And it's being abused, it's being misused. Same thing, across the board, I think, at least in our country, when it comes to our budget and also our debts, and how, the US is essentially spending more than it can bring in, and there's a lot of unaccounted money that's being spent. And so whenever we look at Pluto deals with power, right? So it's the power of these super groups, of these political figures, government figures, big business. And I see Mars as almost like the little guy, the creative, the self-employed that's on the other end of the spectrum from Pluto and Aquarius. And so it's going to be interesting to start to kind of see how people are really going to be making the decision to take matters into their own hands when it comes to their finances and their resources. Apparently some, weeks ago, upon Janet Yellen talking about how we were getting ready to reach this point and that, we would have to be kind of figuring out what we were going to do, because it would be almost, pretty much catastrophic. There wouldn't be enough money, obviously, to cover everybody's expenses. Everybody hears, well, the banking is FDIC insured and this, that, and the other. But the reality of the situation is that if shift really hit the fan, we would not be able to have all of our physical dollars within reach. And when I was learning more about bail-ins and bailouts and the fact that, if a bail-in were to potentially be something that they would consider, that money would actually be coming from the savings and the accounts of individuals who have been saving and trying to kind of protect their financial future, almost in a way rewarding the banks for bad behavior. And the banks obviously are very heavily tied and are doing nothing but making friends with Washington and people who are high up in those political positions. It's all intertwined. So the more that I've been learning about this, the more that it makes me wonder, are we going to hear more about bail-ins and bailouts? And the truth of the matter is that we've got people who are being held accountable for their student debt, for their credit card debt, for their mortgages, for their car payments. And yes, we're going to see, I think, a lot of issues with repossession. I think we're going to see more issues with, just the system and other banks kind of going belly up. But I wonder if things are going to get to a point where they're going to be bringing this up again. Apparently, they reversed directions, decided not to go in the direction of the bail-ins because there was going to be a lot of commotion from individuals revolving this, and then they had to figure out another way to kind of go and get the resources. But it reminds me a lot of these squares that, why would we reward bad behavior for North Node, Jupiter, Taurus, greedy banks and institutions, and where are things also being overly inflated, right? North Node and Taurus, it's pretty common to see inflation. Jupiter and Taurus, common to see inflation, and also stocks that are equally going to be increasingly more and more valuable. But when you see squares to Pluto, we're going to start to kind of see where there's something being unveiled about how those at the top are handling their taxes, investing their money, what they're doing with that, how that's actually affecting the markets, and how there may be some kind of insider information going on that's helping them better kind of determine or decide where to put their money and when to pull. So you guys you're gonna hear something about this over the next week or two as these transits are setting up. I've had a lot of people message me and ask me questions about, the breakdown, when the breakdown is going to happen. I can just say very simply that on the tail of the Venus retrograde at the end of summer, when we begin to see Mars coming into oppositions with Saturn, and when we begin to see next year Jupiter's ingress into Gemini, and Jupiter will be moving basically into a sign where it's not comfortable. It'll square Saturn, it'll square Neptune. I believe, we're going to see something this summer revolving around, the debt ceiling in the United States. They're going to find a way to kind of put a bandage on the broken arm and possibly try to smooth over, but there is still going to be this looming crisis. I assume, this is just based off of what I've seen in the transits, that that's going to start to kind of crack, and we're going to start to see that kind of come through, where there's bigger problems in the fall of 2023. And then next year when Pluto is fully in Aquarius for a longer period of time, and we start to see Jupiter's ingress into Gemini and the squares to Pisces, higher unemployment rates. I do think that's when we're really going to start to see 2024 and 2025 major economic problems. So I don't think it's just purely off of this square that's going to be happening over a period of a couple days. But perhaps people are feeling the pressure, right? And it's pushing them to be creative about what other things they can create. I also think about the South Node's rulership and how the South Node is still in Scorpio, at least, for about another month and a half or so. That South Node is what we're purging, cutting, and moving away from. And Scorpio is what's painful or what's hidden or what's toxic. So perhaps, Mars moving into the opposition with Pluto I think you're going to see a lot of people changing teams, okay? Because Mars is in a sign that is associated with, sports and things that can be bet on, and things that can be more entertainment based. So I think that we're going to see a lot of drama when it comes to people who are, going up against each other. And this can be your favorite sports teams. It could be, people who might be contestants on like reality shows. You might also see just lots of drama within the political world, and people becoming very, very passionate about what they like, what they are aligning with, what they're not aligning with, because we're seeing Mars make an opposition to Pluto. This is literally the individual, right, versus the masses and the collective. So we're going to see this continuation of people out in society that don't want to be quiet. They don't want to keep their mouth shut. They want to be very loud, and they want to be very proud about what their beliefs are. And they're willing to kind of stand up to the big boys in the world that are more so threatening, or kind of like the bully on the schoolyard. I also feel like a lot of the topics that are going to bring up some of these duels, or these two sides of a situation, is going to be Taurus related matters. So you're going to hear people very passionate about what they feel like the solution is with the banking system. You're going to hear, because Jupiter is involved, people very passionate about, religion, philosophy, economics, and also like the markets. So you're going to hear a lot of people talking about that. The Mars square Jupiter is very big energy. The Jupiter square Pluto does kind of want to have this opportunity to redeem and step out of the shadows. So I like that Jupiter is the focal point of the square, even though we're dealing with some really big archetypal planetary personalities. Really the name of the game is integrity. And, I'm going to continue to keep, talking to you guys about things that I'm seeing out in the world that I feel like are reflections of this energy. Something I saw yesterday was Elon Musk had an interview, I think it was with Universal NBC, and he was talking to the guy who was interviewing him, and he was asking him, are you not concerned about the things that you're tweeting about? Some of the things you're tweeting about is kind of conspiracy. And Elon pushed back, and he was like, actually, some of these things are not. They've been proven to be true. And then the interviewer was like, okay, well, even so, are you not concerned about how that might affect your businesses, your stock prices, or your consumers who are buying your products? What if they feel like they don't agree with you? Are you worried about that? And it was really interesting because he had a moment where he had a long pause, and then he references The Princess Bride, where the character confronts the guy who killed his dad, and he says you offer me power, you offer me money, I don't care. And I think it was interesting because Pluto being power, right? Taurus, Jupiter being money, and Mars isn't even in Leo yet, but it was this moment that was there's nothing you can offer me, there's nothing you can give me that would make me shut up, that would, convince me to say anything other than what my heart believes. Very Mars, Jupiter, Pluto moment. And so we will see in certain situations that there is going to be a rise of people being very proud about the fact that they feel like they're on the right track, right? Especially because Jupiter is going to be about their faith, their philosophy, and the willingness to go up against the bad guys in society and challenge the status quo, and not be willing to just fall in line because they're being paid. So we're going to see more of this. But equally, the darker side of this archetypal combination can be some really dangerous, almost deadly, situations that can happen where people are, blowing things up or attacking things as a result of trying to get their political or their religious, belief across. So I'm not looking forward to that. I do feel like it makes me a little nervous seeing Mars in a sign that's associated with children. I think we're going to hear more about, violence in schools or violence among younger people. That opposition to Pluto also is going to be really touching on where younger, generations are going to be very angry and they're going to be pushing back. And I think we're going to hear more revolving around, you know, trans rights and, you know, the trans movement, especially considering Mars is a sign that deals with, you know, our male or masculine bodies, or what it means to be masculine, regardless of the physicality. That opposition to Pluto is going to be whether or not they're pushing back against what people are telling them they should or should not do. And then the squares to Jupiter is also, I think, going to be about things involving sports. I think we're going to hear more about younger people in sports and some of these topics, because eventually Mars will come into a square with Uranus. So it's going to be what is unconventional or unusual in society. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on with that, I'm just letting you guys know, I think we're going to hear more about that. I do believe also when Venus comes into the mix and we start seeing the Venus-Pluto opposition in the square, we're going to see archetypally where the masculine archetype is somehow being challenged. And then the feminine Venus opposition to Pluto square will also be challenged. And so you guys will see that. That is going to play out. Keep in mind that Mars and Venus rule the north and the south node. So as Mars is coming into an opposition with Pluto, it's a great time to cut back, eliminate, let go, stand up, and say no more. When the Venus-Pluto opposition comes through, I think it's going to be more revolving around you know, whether or not we're willing to, you know, make the relationship changes, make the financial changes, choose life, choose security, choosing passion. So more on that. I'm gonna do some stuff on the Venus retrograde. I'm also working on a Venus retrograde lecture that I'm going to be doing. I'm doing a webinar, so stay tuned. I'll be putting that out for you guys soon if you want to sign up for that in June. But prepare for clearing out the old, okay? Cutting things out, detoxing, removing, severing. And once again, Mars is in a sign that is associated with Leo. So Leo can be about the heart. Leo can be about the heart of the matter. Leo can be also about younger people and military. So I'm wondering if we're going to hear more revolving around that, whether or not there is talk about, you know, this push to incentivize younger people to get involved. And then finally, you know, what's going to be happening soon is we're going to see the north and the south node change signs. So it's going to be after Mars segues into Virgo. But nevertheless, it's interesting to see that this is like the last big, you know, hurrah for Mars and the clearing out. And then when we get into July, when we have the north node in Aries, it'll be about 1.5 years of instead cutting, severing, moving away. North Node in Aries is going to be incentivizing us to stand up, be an individual, be courageous, to fight, and to push for the things that we need. So I've already kind of taken a peek at that right when the nodes change, and then Mars is going to be in Virgo. Not going to be the easiest run right off the bat. I don't really feel like we're going to be really picking up momentum and steam until the fall when Mars is getting closer into the sign of Scorpio. So let's touch on the important dates and aspects, obviously starting with the 20th, where Mars moves into Leo. So it'll be forming that exact square to Jupiter and also to Pluto. The Jupiter, you know, ingress just happened this week. We're going to be feeling this kind of grand fixed cross energy really all the way up until the beginning of June. It depends on how many degrees of an orb you work with, but just know that very loud, changing, transformative energy setting up with this grand fixed cross. And it's especially interesting for me because we have planets that are squaring the nodes on both sides. So Pluto represents like that collective breakdown, change, transformation, death, decay. And then Mars represents the fighting, the pushing back, and the need to kind of stand up. So very, very, very unusual. And then all of these planets are at 0 degrees, which is very potent. It's the purest form. So it's the purest form of Leo, the purest form of Taurus, the purest form of Aquarius. Watch what's happening in the world, okay? Like the 20th, really all the way through the better part of like, you know, the 25th or the 26th. That whole 5, 6, 7 day period is just some of the loudest energy of the year. I don't know how else to put it. There's so many different aspects going on, and it's so unusual to see these configurations that Even if you don't have any planets in the fixed signs, the fact that we're going to have planets squaring the nodes and all kind of aligning around 0 to 3 degrees is an indication that the events that are going to take place at the end of May of 2023 are life-changing. People will make some decisions that will have major impact for years to come. Okay, so more on that in just a minute. But also, we're going to be feeling stubborn. Like, the fixed signs don't want to change, but change can be good. Change can also be scary. Change can be painful. Definitely Mars and Pluto talks about what is painful and what is scary. But the North Node, Jupiter, is that willingness to say, it's okay, like, you know, it may play out better than you think. You know, why don't we just make that change? Why don't we just proceed forward and be optimistic about it? Then on the 24th, we're going to see the grand fixed cross set up. And it's going to be pretty active because of the lunar transit. So I picked this day because this is when we have the moon square its own nodes, which means emotions and actions somehow affect our destiny. Moon conjunct Mars, which is very feisty and energetic, and it does talk about this emotional pressure, but it can also be, you know, fun and creative or very romantic. Big energies because it's square Jupiter, even bigger energies because it's in opposition to Pluto. It's very much like, here goes nothing. Might as well give this a shot. It reminds me of like being in the casino and having like your last $5 and putting it into a slot machine and being like, well, I already spent all my money, so let's see what happens. And then you hit like a jackpot. So some people may feel like, you know what, you know, what do I have to lose? I'm going to give it a shot on the 24th. Nevertheless, actions have consequences. And this is very much the case with Mars opposed Pluto. This is very much the case with Mars square the nodes. You know, I'll talk to you guys about how Mars will be performing based off of its aspects, but just know that Mars in Leo in general is very prideful, okay? It's sexy, it's dramatic, it's very romantic, but it can also be very egotistical because it's ruled by the sun. Thankfully, we're gonna have some nice solar aspects. So as long as the sun's like okay, then we're doing fine. We're not gonna kind of hit a snag until the sun squares Saturn. On this day, the moon Mars will sextile the sun. So I'm anticipating people are gonna feel very inspired to create, collaborate, talk, share, have a good time, and want to pursue something that they're very passionate about. So pay attention on the 24th. What comes up for you? What you suddenly feel like you need to start doing or creating or participating in. Make time for a little creative time, make time for a little bit of romance, make time for hanging out with younger people. If you have children, spending time with your kids, maybe, you know, setting work aside and just focusing on having some fun. Honestly, that's really what this is going to be about. We'll see that the Mars is moving out of opposition with Pluto. And with the moon and Mars square Jupiter, this is like big opportunities to feel inspired, but we could also overdo it. There could be some temper tantrums with Mars and Leo, so we can have some really big emotional reactions where we get kind of heated. But because the sun is in a sextile, I think people are getting excited. Then on the 25th, is when we're going to start to see Mars come into a square with the nodes. And so notice so many planets are squaring the nodes, guys. Now, Mars square the nodes will represent like that skipped step of we must do this, and Mars is going to be at 3 degrees. So it's going to be about speaking out, communicating, sharing, saying something. So maybe you're feeling it on the 24th, maybe it's on the 25th. But there may be a situation where, you know, with Moon Mars in Leo, the squares to Mercury and Uranus, you see something go down, you feel something, you feel inspired to speak out, to write, to share, to create something. Something that I do feel like is going to be coming up is going to be this feeling of just being very proud about what you've created, or being very proud about what you believe in, and like taking actions that are going to be something you can be proud of. So if you are, you know, doing something with high integrity and you're like, yes, I, you know, went and you know, made the decision to, you know, protect that person in society, you know, who was getting harassed in a parking lot. or I made the decision to, go and jump in and, talk to my child about how important it is to learn right from wrong. And a lot of it's going to revolve around childlike issues or child behavioral issues, acting like children, even as adults. It may be also about possessions and, teaching younger people about the importance of, more is not necessarily more, money does not necessarily equal love. Having things are great, but it doesn't necessarily bring you fulfillment. I think that's what we're going to be hearing a lot and feeling a lot. And so you may feel inclined to share that bit of wisdom or advice with other people. Something that really struck a chord with me while I was going through some similar squares. I remember when, particularly like a transit where, there was like a Saturn-Mars Scorpio aspect that was squaring things in Leo and Aquarius. And it was from my 2nd to my 5th house in opposition to my 11th. And I was listening to a lot of Alan Watts. Maybe some of you guys know who that is. He was good for a while. He had a little bit of some rough years there towards the end, but and he talked about his job as being a counselor to younger people and counseling and talking to young people who are making decisions about what kind of a path they were going to be taking in their education. And he would ask people, what do you want to go to school for? And people would say, well, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to go into sociology, or I'm, going to be a teacher, or, and people saying all of these really kind of expected, the jobs that we are expected to take, that are going to be safe and that are going to be secure and that are going to provide for, our futures. And he says, well, do you want to do that? And then he says to them, okay, if money were no object, what would you do? And of course, the tone changes. You see people light up and they get excited and they go, well, I would train horses, or I'd be a poet, or I'd be, a dancer or an artist or a photographer or a traveler. And then he would say to them, well, then just go do that. Go and do that. Figure out your passion, and the money will come. Don't worry about the money, because there's always going to be somebody who's going to want what you have, and just go focus on being the best at what you can do, and then the money will follow. And for me, that was such a really powerful thing, hearing somebody talk about that, and also coming from a background where my father was always a creative. He had a full-time job, but taught himself photography and continued to keep studying his craft, and then launched his own, professional photography business, and was doing that as a side hobby, but that's what he was so passionate about. So I was lucky enough to always have somebody in my life that was encouraging me and telling me, go the creative path. Not that you can't go and study and get an education in the process, but just focus on doing something that you're passionate about. And I would play that over and over and over again. I would play that going to my 9-to-5 job until something clicked and I was just okay, I'm going to make that change. So for many of you guys, it may be that segue from being in a state of, I can't, it's not going to happen, what's the point, to screw it, I have nothing left to lose, I might as well give it a shot. And some of the things that bring joy and some of the things that you're most passionate about and feel the most fulfilled in participating in may end up being the most lucrative. So I encourage you guys to really pay attention to when that comes in, because that feeling will be very warm. With the moon and Mars in Leo, it's whatever suddenly lights you up, you're going to be this is that thing. And yeah, fear is going to get you a little bit, right? Because it's squaring Uranus. So it's oh my God, do I take this risk? Is it worth it? It's still in opposition to Pluto. So it's this is scary. But with Mars being at a 3, it's just taking the first steps. It's just starting to write, the first chapter of the book. It's just starting the process of creating the designs for what may ultimately be, a whole new business where you're printing things and showing everything that you've kind of created. You have to talk about it, right? So with the Sun in Gemini, with Mars in Leo, it's about talking the talk and walking the walk. We have to do both. It's not just something that we write down and then we sit on it. If you're feeling inspiration hitting, just keep running with it and see what kind of comes up during this particular day. Still challenging though, because Mars square the nodes can also mean that if we're not keeping our anger or our frustration in check, even like a little bit of like our dramatic, passionate, like overzealous self in check, there can be accidents, there can be fevers, cuts, burns, there can be a sense of also getting into conflict with other people. Mars is still not far off from the square to Jupiter. It's still within a 1-degree orb, and it's still within a 3-degree orb of Pluto. So keep in mind, actions have consequences. Be mindful of what you say. Be mindful of how you're moving through the world. And there is a need to, yes, take risks, but calculated risks, right? And also just be really staying in touch with not becoming too overzealous. Then I'm going to take you guys to the 13th and the 14th of June. I guess this is worthy of mentioning beforehand, but Mars will in conjunct and quincunx Saturn here on like the 31st and then the 1st, which is a little bit of like if we've been taking action, but we don't have a vision or we don't have a plan, something feels kind of funky, and you may see that play out from the 31st into the 1st. Okay, so the 13th of June. I picked this day because this is when you're going to start to see Mars coming back to 14 degrees, okay? And the 13th and the 14th, I think you're going to feel it anyway because the moon's going to come through Taurus. And as you guys have noticed, when the moon is in Taurus, conjuncting the North Node, conjuncting Jupiter, conjuncting Uranus, there's like all these big physical changes, financial changes, feelings that shift. And it does send us for a little bit of like a loop-de-loop when it comes to our resources and our self-esteem and our security. But I picked this day because Mars hits 14 degrees. So if you guys go back and you look at the eclipse that we had on May 5th, okay, 2023, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. It was gnarly. I don't know if you guys remember, at 14 degrees of Scorpio. So that was the last Scorpio eclipse. However, we've got Mars, which is the ruler of Scorpio, that is reactivating that eclipse because it is squaring that 14-degree point. So we had the moon that was here, we had the sun that was here, and it's hitting that square point because that's the midpoint between the two. Maybe it's nothing. I think it's something because we are going to see that the moon is then going to swing through on the 14th. So you might want to think about what was going on during the eclipse around the beginning of May. There might be similar themes that are still kind of getting shaken out. And I know as I say that, some of you guys are having like lunar eclipse PTSD. So try not to freak out about it too much, but I definitely think there is going to be something to that. And then on the 25th of June, we're going to have Mars in Leo square Uranus in Taurus, and that's going to be at 21 degrees. Okay. So now we've got the archetype of Uranus, which is explosive, sudden, rebellious, unexpected, action-packed, and honestly, like a little resistant to change, right? Because Uranus usually just wants to kind of like let the bottom fall out. But being in the sign of Taurus where it wants something that is like resistant to change, yeah, unless we see like hard angles, like squares, generally this doesn't want to break up or break through. So when Mars comes into that square, we're taking the archetype of action and motivation and desire and, you know, creative, and it's all squaring Uranus, which is a hard degree. What is this going to create? Well, first of all, if you have any placements, let's say 20 to 22 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, watch out. This is going to be pretty loud. I do feel like it's going to have us feeling restless. Some of us will be feeling more willing to take risks. This can be very accident prone. This can be very unpredictable. Keep in mind, like I said, the sun is the ruler of Mars. So here we have the sun in a trine to Saturn, not too bad. And then Venus is the ruler of Uranus, and Mars and Venus are connected. So we've got the North Node ruler, the South Node ruler coming into conjunction and squaring with Uranus. Oh my gosh. For starters, let's talk about the pros. Pretty wild in the markets. I think with Jupiter in the North Node and Uranus, we're going to see like some wild fluctuations in the financial markets. I'm anticipating that this might be a window where younger people have the opportunity to make a pretty penny. So if you're watching and waiting for opportune moments to get in and buy things and take risks, that might be the time to do it. It is going to be at a 21, which is a Sag degree. So it does talk about what's going on around the world, foreign markets, how that's impacting you domestically. It may also be talking about war and things that are explosive and things that are very sudden and unexpected. Loud, bright pops of color, right? Very Venus-Uranus, sudden upsets and unexpected events, especially with sports, especially in Hollywood. I got my eye on Bennifer. I got to tell you guys, knowing that they've got all this Venus or Leo stuff going on, and like Pluto and Aquarius, I'm curious to see what happens. I keep referring to the Venus retrograde this summer as a cruel summer, because we're going to see so many squares between Uranus and also Jupiter that very big, very bright, very dramatic. So I think that we're going to hear lots of like juicy Hollywood gossip, but I do think we're also going to hear a lot about where there is this big boom with cryptocurrency or NFTs or digital currency, and how younger people or artists or people who are more independent are pushing for creative freedom, self-expression. Unfortunately, I have to say this, but being a YouTuber, I think you're going to hear more about younger people and, people who are monetized and people who create and wanting more freedom and like not wanting to feel tethered about the things that we talk about, and the fact that, our creative videos and our content that we put out there, if we're lucky enough to get monetized, which is not easy to get to that point, then you spend so much time building a platform and creating a place where you're just putting your heart and soul into your work. But there is a sense of pressure, right? There is a sense of anything can suddenly change with that, based off of what you talk about and what political things you talk about, what things you're talking about in a sense of what's going on just in the world. I don't want to speculate about any one particular thing, but things that'll get you censored, right? That can basically, take a swipe at your, ability to be able to keep getting paid to create. So I think we're going to hear more about that. I wonder, just having heard some things from independent media over the last week or two about people who are suggesting that their bank accounts have been compromised, or they have had an inability to have access to their bank accounts, or that their bank accounts have been dismissed or shut down because of their political views, or because of being so spoken out about things that are going on in society. I'm personally curious to see if more comes out revolving around these big banks and their affiliation with certain people in politics. I'm curious to hear more about Epstein and anything involving, younger children, and following the money and the trail that leads back to elites in society, and how much the banks knew and how much the banks were in on it. I do think that it's very likely, with the Venus retrograde and all of these squares, July, August, September, the headlines are going to be pumped with, so-and-so famous couple breaks up, and this big band, breaks up, and, this couple reunites, and like, there's going to be lots of juicy drama. And there's also going to be lots of stuff that I do think that's going to come out about, the war, that is meant to be distracting from some of the bigger things that are actually kind of going on behind the scenes. Keep in mind that, Jupiter and Uranus next year are going to meet. So spring of 2024 is like the real kaboom. We're going to start to see the real shifts in society in terms of a cashless society, digital currencies, CBDCs. And also we're going to be realizing that our money in some way is being controlled, or our spending is being monitored, or what we're buying and what we're consuming is being monitored. Not a lot of people realize that the whole Fed Now thing is not just about being able to create easy ways to be able to exchange money. It's going to be tied also to other businesses that are going to be, keeping score what products you're buying and what you're consuming. And so a lot of these squares from Leo to Taurus are going to be about how younger people are getting more involved with what's happening within the financial systems. And I think a lot of people who are in the public eye, or who are creative, or people who are artists or performers, may be pushing back I think of Leo as having its own stage, right? And I'm very interested to see who speaks out, who uses that stage for good, who also maybe goes out on their own and creates their own platforms and is able to kind of segue into having their own shows or having their own, networks or having their own podcasts or other things where they're really breaking away from groups and they're not being easily persuaded by the money. I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to, because I think that when you see people who are doing things out of the goodness of their heart, because they feel that it's so important and they're so inclined to just create and speak and act regardless of the financial outcome, that's when the most magical things are going to happen. So I look forward to that. Then on the 5th of July, we're going to see Mars is going to come into an inconjunct with Neptune. This is an aspect to watch because I do think it's going to create a situation where, we may not see so clearly. We may feel a little lost in regards to the direction that we're taking. And what is going to be cool is that you're going to see Mars form a yod between Pluto, Neptune, and Mars. So there's something kind of magical actually, like when Mars hits 27, when Venus hits 27, 28, 29, and then retrogrades, because that's going to be the focal point, especially during the Venus retrograde, of making lemonade from what seems like a very murky, unclear, kind of like hidden, swampy vibe with the Pluto-Neptune sextile that's going to be coming back because Pluto is going to go retrograde. I'm also, digging the fact that the Sun and Mercury are going to be following each other very closely. So not only do we see lots of positive energy to all of these trines and like sextiles to all of these placements in Taurus, but Mercury is there. So there's a lot of like listening to our emotions and thinking about our family and thinking about our heritage and our homeland. And it is a lot about pride. There's going to be taking more pride in the family unit, more pride in home, more pride in family and where we come from. And it doesn't necessarily mean the country that you live in. It can mean from where your family came from and learning more about your history. And the truth is like history repeats itself. So I think we're going to hear a lot of people talking about where their families immigrated from, what they've learned, strong, values that have been instilled in them. And I think you're going to hear a pretty significant shift in a sense of society in terms of maybe reworking or rethinking when it comes to relationships, love, children, and something shifting here. Now, between the Mars squares Uranus and like the Venus retrograde, a lot of people's perspectives on these things are going to be heavily influenced by the financial situation. So you're going to hear people going, well, I'd love to have a kid, but I just feel like I can't swing it because I can, barely pay my rent. Or, I really have tried to stay married and I've tried to do it, but it's just not working because we have a clash of values and they want to spend and I want to save. You're going to hear lots of things like that because Venus and Mars are going to square Uranus, and also because we're going to see a Venus retrograde. So all summer, the drama is going to be kind of in the skies. Then on the 9th, we're going to see Mars pick up that inconjunct to Pluto. So it'll hit 29 degrees. And once again, look at this, it's another yod, especially with the moon. There we go. So it looks like it's going to be on the 5th and the 9th. Always get curious when I see planets hitting like 29 degrees, right? 29, 29, 29. So that'll be another quincunx to Pluto. But it'll be a sextile, so this will be a yod. So some really significant events, actually, like the 5th through the 9th of July, and Mars and the action that we're taking, being so very connected to maybe pushing through and exposing some corruption, especially within government, because Pluto will be back in Capricorn, exposing swampiness, murkiness, and things, about Neptune-related things. Immigration, other countries, media, manipulation in society, issues revolving around religion. Yeah, you know, I have a lot of, part of it's the older that I get. The older that I get, the more faith I have in younger generations. And I think that's just because it's harder to get older people to be willing to change or to keep an open mind. You know, as we get older, we get kind of fixed in our ways. So I'm very, very curious to see what young people do throughout some of these transits, because I think that they're going to play a huge role in the shift that's going to be coming. On the 9th, we're going to have Mars hit 29 degrees. Looks like it's actually going to be later on the 8th, but it'll be at 29 through the 9th. So that'll be the final degree. So things get kind of loud then. And look at the nodes are hitting 0 degrees. So they're getting ready to shift as well. And then it's going to be on the 10th that Mars is going to enter into Leo. Okay, so in the morning on the 10th, Mars enters Leo. We're done. Excuse me, Mars enters Virgo. We're done with the Mars and Leo transit. And just to give you guys a slight preview, it's going to be with the Mercury-Pluto opposition. And when Mars goes through Virgo, it's got some tricky territory, because it's going to have to come into an opposition with Saturn, and it'll have some difficult Mercury aspects as well. So it's almost like the challenging news, the challenging job reports, the numbers, the unemployment, things revolving around, you know, health industry, service industry. Once again, they're putting a bandage on it. Like, I think they're going to just barely push through the summer, and then we're going to start to see the cracks closer to end of August going into September. But yeah, more on that when we get into Mars in Virgo. So that's the most important aspects. Just to kind of recap and give you guys some themes that really come up for me. Obviously, grand performances. Watch for some amazing artistic movements. Especially wanting to see like who gives a grand performance. I'm curious to see with Mars in opposition to Leo, who this Mars and Leo in opposition to Pluto, who this really famous person that might transition is going to be. I wonder that it may be a famous actor, it may be a famous sports star, but there should be some kind of major segue of somebody who's really well known, but also just really, really, really big creative movements. Hollywood drama, right? There's going to be a lot of it with Jupiter-Uranus squares. Watch for those inflated senses of ego and pride, okay? It can be really easy with Mars and Leo to just like think that we're the best and be really, you know, out there and wanting to be creative and passionate and being in that moment. But with the squares to Jupiter, we can overdo it, right? With the oppositions to Pluto. We are going to see some jealousy. We are going to see some envy. We are going to see some people who are not going to like the fact that people are going out on their own. And they'll use some scare tactics or some manipulation tactics or even money to be able to kind of stunt people from, you know, stepping into the light and showing what they've got. Watch for children or younger people making headlines in some way. Gambling, sports, and taking chances is going to be a huge theme. So if you're a big gambler, if you're big on sports, if you like to do those things, keep in mind big risk, big reward. But some of you guys may get caught with your pants down because the oppositions to Pluto. I'm thinking about people who are like going to be trying to do stuff in the markets also with margins. Just be very cautious. I would not be trying to do anything like that. I would be very careful with investing and don't be willing to put anything up that you aren't prepared to lose. But above all, romantic and creative pursuits are huge. So going after what you want, right? Remember that Venus is near. So when Mars and Venus are near each other, the star-crossed lovers are moving together in unison. Venus is going to retrograde back over some of this area. So she'll maybe be able to kind of kiss the bruises and make up and kind of smooth over some of the conflict that has happened. But during the retrograde, not everything is going to be easily mended because it will square Uranus several times. So watch for all of these themes, you know, focus on being confident and assertive, you know, Competition is a thing with Mars and Leo. So is being courageous. Just know where the line is. And I'm excited to really see this play out, because I think a lot of people, at least for me, just reflecting on like Mars and Leo transits, it's always been a time where I've seen very generous individuals kind of come into my life. I've really realized how loyal some of the people in my life can be and how committed they are. And it's brought a lot of fun and a lot of joy and a lot of romance. And I definitely think that if it's utilized in the appropriate ways, it can shine a light on some of our best qualities. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys the 12 rising sign predictions. I am a Western astrologer, so this is going to be for Western astrology for Mars through Leo through the 12 rising signs. This is going to be a whole sign prediction. You guys can listen to whole sign because it'll go all the way from 0 to 29 degrees. Or if you're Placidus, you want to see where 0 degrees of Leo is in your chart, that's where the transit is going to begin. And obviously this is going to be felt the most by Leos, Aries, and Scorpio rising. Leo, Mars is going to go through your sign, and Aries and Scorpio risings, Mars is your ruling sign. So when Mars changes signs or it makes aspects, you guys need to know what's going on. And as a reminder, the first 5 degrees of the fixed signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you guys are really going to be feeling the squares. So it's going to be an action-packed next like 10 days. So make sure if you guys are having these transits, leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear how that's playing out for you personally. And I will be starting with Aries and Aries rising. Okay. So for Aries and Aries rising, obviously this is important for you guys because Mars is your chart ruler. So you're going to be having Mars go through your 5th house of Leo. Helpful, right? Helpful because Mars loves to play here. It likes to be creative. It likes to date and romance and have fun. Mars rules your 1st house of the body. So wherever Mars goes is like what you're participating in and you're doing. Mars also rules the 8th house, which deals with joint resources and other people. So I could see this as being like a very sexy time, Aries. I think it's about, connecting with others, creating, merging with others. It can be taking chances and trying to, take some of your investments and gambling or risking it a little bit to see if maybe you can grow your resources. It's a wonderful time to be spending with like younger people. So if you have children, if you're wanting to get back into the dating world, if you're wanting to really focus on, a new hobby, especially if it's action oriented, like playing sports, and if you're wanting to just be working with something creative and anything that's going to be about self-expression, that is the best use of this transit. Keep in mind, because Mars is your ruling planet, as it makes all of the squares and the oppositions, it is going to kind of rile things up a little bit. So to me, it seems like a lot of stepping away from groups and like what other people want and tuning more into what you want and what you're creating and going after what you want, and really believing in yourself and believing in your talent and your capabilities. The card that I got for you is the 4 of Cups. So this is a card that deals with contemplation, reevaluation, feeling unfulfilled, opportunity, and moving out of a period of feeling like stuck or feeling indifferent. And I think this makes sense. I think that there's a lot of breakthrough energy here. While Mars is moving through your 5th house, it's saying like, I want to have a good time. I don't want to just sit around and wait for things to happen. I want to make things happen. It's also going to be trining your sun, your moon, your rising sign. And so fire trines produce some kind of action. I think once you get out of like the funkiness of like the first couple of days of this transit and when Mars starts coming out of the square with the nodes, you will have realized that there is a need to go and do your own thing and not get kind of emotionally stuck or caught up in feeling like you have to make sacrifices. You're going to realize that you are responsible for creating your own happiness. Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Welcome to Mars and Leo. This is going to be loud, Taurus, so buckle up. For you, you've got Mars that will be moving through your 4th house of home and family, and it'll be here for the better part of the next couple of weeks. The 4th house obviously deals with your home zone, your family, where you're living. people that you live with. It can also be about roommates or partners or family. Now, Mars rules your 7th house of relationships and partners. It also has connections to your 12th house of what is hidden and subconscious. So we take those two themes of how Mars ties into those houses and we put it in the 4th. The positive is, if something needs to get done around the house, if something needs to happen, it looks like it's gonna take place, and it looks like it's gonna be somehow maybe connected to a partnership or somebody who's coming in and like helping you do this. Remember that Mars can have a quality of like kind of like being an attack. So with Mars in the 4th house, you may feel like there's conflict with family. You can have some roommates that are kind of iffy. If you have a partner that you live with, or if you have a spouse that you're living with, they can be kind of combative, and there can definitely be some conflict in the home. So family quarrels are a thing. This is especially true because it's going to be squaring Jupiter in your sign and it's opposing Pluto. And to be really honest with you, I feel like you're trying to be positive and optimistic about some of the changes that are going to be taking place at home and within your life. And you're probably feeling like you're the one who's like, you know what, I have to stay positive. Otherwise, like, my roommates or my family are going to tear each other apart. Maybe you're one of those Taurus risings that's going through, you know, a change in a relationship and somebody is moving out. Maybe you're moving homes. But this is really loud energy with Mars in opposition to square Pluto. It really can come from all angles. My advice is have a list of things to do while Mars is in your 4th house. Be mindful that with Mars square Jupiter, it might be you telling partners, hey, we need to clean this up, we need to fix this, we need to rearrange that, redecorate this. And you're going to have an opportunity to do that later this summer. I'm sure I said this to all the signs, but I'm going to say it again. Venus will go through here and it will retrograde. So there can be some conflict you can have with some partners or some family members, and Venus going retrograde in July, August can give you the opportunity to make up. It could be that you're trying to teach or educate or kind of preach to family members or partners, and it just creates some conflict, especially revolving around work and home dynamics, and wanting to make some changes there. But as long as you're like moving things around, reorganizing things, you know, and staying active in the home, you can diffuse a lot of this energy. And watch especially when Mars comes into a square with Uranus in your sign, because I could see where that's like where some family or home dynamic things are really kind of setting you off. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But it's a very busy energy for your chart here, Taurus. If you want to move, if you're wanting to relocate, things like that, or if you're wanting to like demo and renovate a part of your house, I could see that happening as well. The card that I get is the 4 of Wands. Interesting. So I wonder, you know, this is a card that sometimes deals with like relationships, marriages, families, friends, reunions. If this is like family saying, we're coming in and we're staying with you, and you're like, I'm slammed, I'm so busy, I have so much work, like I'm trying to be positive about balancing my personal life and also my professional life. And this is a positive card. I mean, it does talk about gatherings. So I'm wondering, like, is there family coming to visit, coming to stay with you? Are they going to be in the house? If so, it looks like it can be more positive. And it might just require you to be a little bit more tapped into what's going on with your home and family life, and be willing to kind of shift gears and move away from this really strong focus with work right now. Okay, so good luck with that, Taurus. We've got Gemini rising. Mars will be moving through Leo, through your natal 3rd house. So this is going to all be about communication, travel, ideas, vehicles, writing, siblings. Mars has connections to your 11th house of friends and your goals, and also your 6th house of health, wellness, routine, and habits. You know, I like off the bat the Sun-Mars sextile, and I have a hunch that maybe you're going to collaborate and like be a part of like a local group. I wonder if you're traveling with friends. I wonder if you're going to be traveling with a sibling. I wonder if you're going on a road trip. This may also incentivize you to start writing creatively, maybe with a group. Maybe it means that you're going to start getting out there and biking or walking with a group of friends, and you're trying to find a way to like work more either creative or health time into your schedule. And if you're feeling restless, journaling, biking, walking, these things can be really helpful for releasing some pent-up steam. But, you know, Leo sextile is your sign. So as you start to see the sun come through Gemini, and when Mercury comes through Gemini, it is going to be making some nice aspects here and really kind of setting you up to feel heard and be able to kind of communicate better. This is some funky energy, having all these planets in your 12th house, you know, squaring Pluto and also squaring the 3rd. It's a lot of like your faith and your philosophy changing. It's a lot of like what you've been thinking about, what you've been dreaming about, what you've been envisioning. And now that's starting to kind of come out on paper, and being more communicative about your goals and about your dreams and what you're hoping to accomplish. Now, obviously, big energy with Mars in opposition to Pluto, but Pluto is also going to be trining your ascendant and your sun. So for me, I think it's about just being open to what it is that you're learning and like adopting something new. It could be like a new hobby. It could be a new philosophy, a new belief system, maybe even just getting into like a new part of town and exploring a little bit. It could be something as simple as that. So let's take a look and see what the cards say for you, Gemini. The card that I get for you is the Star card. I love that, especially with the trine to Aquarius. It's really helpful for you. Goals, right? This is about your goals. This is about coming together with a group. And I'm wondering, are you organizing the group? Is it a group that you're bringing together locally? Or are you just getting some of your friends and family together? Hope, reward, miracles, and spirituality, purpose, positivity, and inner clarity, which is such a big theme coming out of a Mercury retrograde in your 12th house. So now you have a better understanding of like what you believe in, what you think. You've gotten to work through something, and now you're ready to kind of share something with the world. So I think the Mars in the 3rd house transit is actually going to be really wonderful for you, Gemini. Good luck. I've got Cancer and Cancer rising. Mars will be moving through Leo in your natal 2nd house of money and resources. We'll hide the credit cards. This can be a period where you're feeling like spending some money. Mars is moving into your 2nd house, which is definitely dealing with resources, self-esteem, finances, but also purchasing power. So generally when Mars moves into this part of your chart, there is this feeling of like needing to spend money or needing to eat or needing to receive, right? It's about possessions. And Mars has a connection to your 10th house of career and reputation. And it also has a connection to your 5th house of children, creativity, and lovers. So I could see, you know, money coming from work, and, you know, now you have more money coming in, so you feel like you have more money to spend. I could see that this is you wanting to spend more money on things that bring you pleasure because of the connection to your 5th house. Those of you guys who are considering starting new hobbies, or you're self-employed, or you do something creative, you're a little bit more willing to spend money on these things, or on dating, on having fun, having a good time. Off the bat, you know, that square to the North Node in Jupiter makes me feel like the reason why you're spending more is you might be socializing more. So going to parties, going to events, having to get gifts, right? And contribute or show up and participate in what other people are doing. That's a huge theme. But I do think work is supporting this. I also have this feeling that you're going to be really reevaluating like which friends are worth fighting for, or which friendships are worth investing time into. And some of your financial goals that you have may be really pushing you to want to connect with people who are out there, you know, doing the work and they're successful in their career. But yeah, watch out for spending, because I definitely think there can be some excess spending situations that can take place, especially when you start to see Mars come into a square with Uranus. There could be definitely like going out to dinner, with groups of people, and then splitting the bill, and then realizing like how expensive it is, and some challenges revolving around whether or not you feel like you can kind of keep up with your social group. Because I do think some of you guys are spending time with new groups of people, or wealthier people, or people who have more resources. So much of the Mars-Pluto opposition, I think, is going to be whether or not you feel like, you know, you have the capabilities to spend what you spend, if you're going to have the support that you need in order to kind of continue to move forward in your social life or in some of your goals. Now, Mars in your second house opposed Pluto in the 8th can also be challenges revolving around your finances and a joint resource. So conflicts with other people over what's owed to you, over what you have access to, and sometimes even quarrels that you're having with partners revolving around, you know, whether or not you guys are on the same page about a budget can definitely come up here. Let's take a look and see what the cards say for you, Cancer. The card that I got for you is the Tower. So this is a difficult card. I was anticipating somebody was going to get this with the Mars-Pluto aspects. This does kind of talk about the end of the line, or, you know, a situation where there is some kind of sudden change, radical shifts, trauma, chaos, and kind of the rug being pulled out from underneath you. So just a word to the wise: don't spend money that you don't have. Don't spend money that you know that you cannot pay back. Be cautious with loans and borrowing, because I feel like with Mars in the second house, you know, there may be a need to spend money, or you may be telling yourself, okay, I've got this job and it's starting and I just need something to get me through. I just need to borrow something, and the terms or the interest or just being able to pay it back within a timely fashion may not be very easy. Okay, good luck. And we've got our star of the show, Leo and Leo rising. Mars is in your sign. You know, the next couple months are going to be so big for you. I think of like Mars going through your first house. I think of the squares to your 10th house of career, where you're really having to kind of stand up for, you know, taking the credit for where the credit is due, for some of your creative projects and some of your success at work. I think that a Venus retrograde that's coming in is also going to be about a complete transformation of you, your appearance, your body, and how you show yourself to the world. And a lot of it's going to be based off of some of this career success that's coming in. I think that, you know, you may feel like with a lot of success comes with a lot of personal challenge, and it comes with a lot of sacrifices, or a lot of needing to stand up for yourself, or pushing through things. And it also can create some challenges in terms of your dynamic with other people. With Mars in opposition to Pluto off the bat, you really want to make sure that you have partners, therapists, counselors, you know, collaborators that are on your side, that are cheering you on, right? You need people who are going to be celebrating your victories with you. If you don't have that, you're going to find that some of the shadow icks that come through your romantic or your dating life are going to present themselves, and you're going to see where, you know, there can be some darker things in relationships that you weren't aware of, and it can definitely create some ego flare-ups. Mars in your first house is strong because Mars is traditionally associated with like Aries first house energy. So you're not going to always think, you're just going to act. And so when you have the sun moving through Gemini, you're celebrating your accomplishments, you're getting together with other people, you're socializing, you may be the one throwing the parties, you may be the one who's bringing everyone together. And so having like a strong social group is important as you're navigating some of these like really big things at work that require a lot of time and effort, and also some of these growing pains maybe that you're having within your relationships with Pluto in your 7th house. But I do think that it's an important time to really focus on yourself, your body, your action, your vitality. I will say that off the bat, it's going to be more about whether or not, you know, you're getting along with bosses or superiors, whether or not you're listening to partners, and there can be some really big ego dramas happening. And then down the road, when Mars comes into a square with Uranus, that can also be challenges revolving around how you're partnering with people. It's almost like you need like a buffer at work. Like you need like a buffer or an assistant or somebody who is gonna, you know, help be like the liaison between you and other people. So maybe making it more challenging for people to reach you, maybe making it more challenging for people to have access to you. So that way you can keep moving forward and doing the things that you need to do, and you're not feeling like you have to be, going through squabbles at work as much. And just watch your energy, because there can be a very, very loud, proud sense of energy that's moving through your first house, especially because Mars's connection to your fourth. Some of your subconscious emotions or feelings might be coming to the surface, and there may be a sense also of the connection to Mars in your ninth house of like wanting to teach or preach people, and you're going to get really exhausted feeling like you're trying to kind of do that. You have that as well with Jupiter in the 10th house, so very loud energy, especially if you're a Leo rising with like the first 5 degrees or so. Oops. And the card that I get for you is the Hierophant. I love this. This is more Taurus. And so this is really kind of saying how like maybe that Jupiter North Node in the 10th is like the balance for keeping your composure and being like, yeah, some of my relationships might be a hot mess and I am like, seething and, trying to work through frustration or anger or what have you, but keeping your composure at work and really focusing on presenting yourself in a way that is very professional and very different. And also consulting with people if need be, and like getting feedback from somebody if need be, to help kind of guide you as you move through some of these changes, because your career and your relationships are shifting so much. And I think that this transit and Leo season is also going to show you it's not just about you and keeping to yourself anymore. Now it's about other people and also your public reputation and your career, and like other people need you too. So a lot of this is stepping outside of yourself and considering these polar energies in your chart. Good luck. We got Virgo and Virgo rising. Mars will be transiting through your 12th house in the sign of Leo. Okay. Well, the 12th house, it's a hidden space, hidden, private, spiritual, dream worlds. Mars moving into the 12th house can be wonderful for traveling, for exploring. It can be really great for shamanic work. It can be really great for creating and having private time or spaces to do what you do, especially if you're like a creative that works with like editing or music or even percussion. I really like Mars in the 12th house for, like artists and people who also work with like instruments, and being able to work on stuff in private. I think the challenge of Mars in the 12th house is that there can be this feeling of being kind of cooped up and like needing to go through periods of changing and transforming yourself. There is a need for healing because of Mars's connection to your 8th house. And Mars is also connecting to your 3rd. So there can be a sense of you holding back and like not wanting to have conversations with people or not knowing how to communicate, and really reevaluating things before you speak up and you say anything. I'm looking at Mars's opposition to Pluto and the fact that Pluto rules your 3rd house. So I definitely feel like it can be about some mental stress and how that is, possibly kind of putting you into a position where you need more rest and recuperation, or you need a vacation, or you're feeling kind of like under the weather. The 12th house can be about hospitals, private centers, healing centers, and I wonder if it's going to be for you to enter into something that's going to be more beneficial for mental health because of the connection to your 3rd. So like talk therapy can be really great here, but also dance, body movement, anything where maybe you're going to be at like a private studio, or maybe like working out by yourself to like work out some of these things. You want to watch, because there can be some bad habits that come up that can definitely have an impact on your mental or your physical health. But I think that this is going to be an interesting time, because it does seem to kind of suggest that if you have been in limbo, in a process of changing or transforming or making peace with something that's uncomfortable, this is the beginning phase of that. Mars will, kind of take you into these spaces, and then Venus will show up, and then that's going to be more about, the healing, the rebuilding. Obviously, Mars and Venus, they can be about love affairs. So this can be about secret love affairs and you know, secret admirers and people who are interested in you that you never knew. And it may come up more so towards the end of summer, that there is some karmic stuff that maybe that you're going to be working out in regards to relationships, because the 12th house is going to be about where things go to kind of wash out and end. And so I think that Mars being here is kind of like an indication that there may be some potential romantic connection behind the scenes that's either wrapping up, or it's getting ready to be wrapped up, or it's getting ready to be revealed. So let's see what the cards say for you. I get the Ace of Pentacles. I love that. You know, Mars being the ruler of your 8th house of other people's resources, I'm wondering if there is some kind of gain that comes through somebody else's loss, which is very possible for you, especially like when Venus comes into the mix. So new material offer, new job promises, promotion, stability, new manifestation, and prosperity. So not necessarily something that I would associate with a Mars in the 12th house transit, but I wonder if it's like the willingness to go and work on yourself and rebuilding your health, or rebuilding some kind of creative project, and being willing to, you know, go and initiate that, because that's what Mars energy does. It wants to start something. And then giving you the opportunity to, you know, create something from it, to bring in more resources from this. Going to be a big theme with the North Node going into your 8th house of how you can generate more income, how you can bring more in. And I think you might have some creative talents that are kind of hiding out, that are getting ready to emerge, that can help you with your prosperity. Good luck, Virgo. We got Libra and Libra rising. What's going on, Libra? We got Mars that's going to be moving through your natal 11th house. And it will be there for several weeks' time. And the 11th house is about friends, networks, parties, get-togethers, organizations, having a good time with other people. Now, Mars rules your 7th house of relationships, and it also rules your 2nd house of money and resources. So we've got other people and your money somehow going into the 11th house. What will this bring? Perhaps, you know, connecting with friends, you know, going out, socializing, going to parties, going to dinners. It can be about including partners in that. So it can be about the relationships that you have with your friends, or you meeting friends, partners, or vice versa. There can be a period of time also of feeling like there is a need to invest more time or action in your goals and what you're hoping to achieve, because the 11th house is about what you're wishing for. It's the house of wishes, and it's the 2nd house to your 10th. So this can be like a really strong period for generating more income creatively through your profession. It's interesting because Mars rules your money, and so now it seems like the growth of your resources may be reliant on who you know, who you can network with, who you're collaborating with. So 2 is better than 1, where, you know, in recent years, Saturn in your 5th has said, do it yourself. And now Pluto is in your 5th house of do it yourself. You know, be creative, work through some of these creative blocks. I think other people can kind of help you. And I think that if you've got some star-studded friends that can help when it comes to your love life, that can help when it comes to a creative project, or just having more fun, go and be with some of these people. You know, just, I was thinking earlier today about the last time Mars went through my 11th house, and it was like 2 years ago, and it was just all summer long I had stuff going on with my friends. I had several friends that were getting engaged, getting married, having kids, having parties, and it was just a lot of seeing my friends, and it was really, it was kind of bittersweet because it was in opposition to Saturn and it was square Uranus, and so there were some people that were kind of leaving and some people that were coming back, but in this situation, Libra, I think you're going to realize that there are some friends that are meant to stay, and there may be some people that you're like, you know what, it's time to go. Some of these people may take you by surprise because Mars deals with the 7th house, which can be about open conflict. So it's not unusual for Mars to pick a fight, and I wonder if there can be some kind of bumping heads with other people, revolving around your love life, your dating life, or just revolving around your relationship with them in general. So watch for that opposition to Pluto. You can hear some people say, well, you know, you're not the same ever since you got married, or ever since you got involved in a relationship, or you had a kid. There can be some conflicts revolving around what you've been focusing on and whether or not other people kind of feel like you've forgotten about them. But the positive is that I do think it gives you the opportunity to go and connect with groups. And that square to Jupiter makes me feel like it's all about who you know. So if you're feeling lacking in the social department, go out there and make friends, connect with people, look for the summer, you know, July, August, when Venus, your chart ruler, will retrograde through here, give you the opportunity to kind of reconnect with people or reevaluate if some of these groups are right for you, right? Let's take a look and let's see what the cards say for you, Libra. The card that I get is the Six of Swords, which is interesting because, you know, you got the season kicking off with like Sun trine your ascendant, Sun trine Pluto. I could see like a lot of Libra risings in the next month or so that are going to be traveling. And to me, it looks like traveling helps you make friends in other places, or it helps you travel to go and connect with friends, or, you know, have more clarity in regards to your goals. And so this is a card about transitions. It is about transformation, distance, you know, moving on to the next thing, accepting lessons, kind of being in limbo. So I think that there can be a sense of you reevaluating, like, okay, is the time coming for me to make some changes in my social life? Do I go and reconnect with some of these people and see if we're still, you know, really close? Do I, you know, venture out there and see what else there is? Because maybe you're traveling, do you meet people in other places, right? Any of these things are possible. I think this is a really great card, especially because this is so strongly tied to Aquarius. So really it's about finding people that are on your wavelength, that are going to encourage you to go through some kind of personal or creative growth, okay? Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You are going to be experiencing Mars going through your natal 10th house in the sign of Leo. Scorpio, this is important because, well, Mars rules your chart, Mars and Pluto. But Mars is your traditional ruler, which means Mars has associations with your first house, and wherever Mars goes is what you're doing. So this is very loud energy for you, Scorpio. I am a little stunned looking at some of the aspects, because it's very clear that some of the events that are going to be taking place over the next like 2 or 3 weeks are going to be very significant. Keep in mind that, you know, Leo is a sign that's 10 houses from your sign. So it naturally has this Saturn energy, which is meant to be challenging. Okay, so it challenges you. But Mars does very well in the 10th house. Mars likes being in the 10th house. It likes being at the top of the chart. Can it be a little ruthless and cutthroat at work? Yes, but it's fighting because it wants to be the best. It wants to get the most recognition. It wants to put the most out there. It wants to be the most creative, the most daring. So in that sense, it's great, right? If it was just a Mars transit. But it's so heavily aspected that it's just, yeah, there's a lot going on here. So while your attention for the next few weeks is going to be on work, Mars is going to first oppose Pluto, which means work or your actions out in the world is creating some kind of challenge at home or within your domestic, you know, union or harmony. It can cause problems with roommates, problems with spouses. It can create issues with family. And there is a sense of you having to take more action and more responsibility for handling crisis that's going on at work or within the home. You could be doing overtime where you're like, I'm emotionally going through it. I've got so much stuff going on at home and in my personal life, and I still have to show up and put a happy face on and be 110% at work. On the other hand, we've also got Mars that's coming into a square with Jupiter in your house of relationships. So it tells me that you're really adamant about getting out there and working and producing and putting things out there because you want that growth. And a lot of that growth is actually coming from your 7th house. So if you have a lot of clients, you have a business partner, if you work with a spouse, it seems like Jupiter in Taurus is pushing and saying, yes, these things are possible. Let's do this. Let's do that, you know, or I need more, give me guidance. Jupiter rules money for you. So it's like you've either got a partner or you've got clients that are financially secure and they're really adamant about being able to grow and encouraging you to do the work to help them, to service them, to help them expand. So really expansive energies. It's just with both your chart rulers, Mars and Pluto, square the nodes, it means that you have to take action at work. You have to be responsible. You have to be an adult. Now is the time to be an adult. And also with Pluto square the nodes, it means that part of being an adult is not just showing up out in the world at work. It's what do you do for your family? What do you do for your spouse? What do you do for your parents? What do you take care of? What are you responsible for at home? Leo can literally be about children, but it can also be about, your view towards love, your view towards relationships. And I think with Jupiter in your 7th house, you're really focusing on wanting to expand your relationships, and you really want to have partnerships in some way. Can be business partnerships, can be romantic, but this is a really significant sign with Jupiter in the 7th house expanding relationships and Saturn in the 5th expanding romance, that it's great to say you want to be in a relationship, but when you're in one, you actually have to do the work. So there is a lot of heavy lifting that's going to come with these squares. So there's growing pains that it's not just about you, or it's not just about your career, it's about other people and your home and your relationships as well. Mars has connections not just to your 1st house of the body, but it also has connections to your 6th house of routine, habits, patterns, but also accidents, right? And anything revolving around like pets and your kind of to-do lists. So I see Mars being in your 10th house is like you're running around and you've got a lot of stuff that you're doing. And to me, it looks like you're trying to kind of navigate doing the professional stuff and doing the home stuff. And you can get a little frustrated because you can feel like your hands are full. And with the squares to Jupiter and the nodes, you may realize that it creates some friction between you and another person. So it could be a roommate, it could be a family member, just kind of feeling like you're overwhelmed. And it may be worth slowing down a little bit, talking to partners or bringing in other people like assistants or hiring people to kind of help you get odds and ends done, just to bring you more peace and also like help there be more stability within the home. The 4th and the 10th house also have a strong connection to parents. So with Mars and Pluto in opposition, square Jupiter, you want to be mindful that there can be some stress revolving around parents, your relationship to them, their relationship to you and your home, them being within your home, or them upsetting your partner. That's definitely something that can happen here. So let's take a look. Let's see. A lot of these things should not be surprising because you've had Saturn in your 4th the last few years, Uranus in the 7th. So for some of you guys, it's that breakthrough that's like, okay, now they are leaving and I have my own space and I have more responsibility. But for others, it's, oh my gosh, relationships evolving, getting more serious in relationships, moving, changing jobs, having families, that kind of stuff. The card that I got for you is the 6 of Pentacles. This is the tarot being sassy. As a Scorpio, I have to laugh at this. So it's about giving and receiving, right? Getting what you give, and being mindful of that give and take, because generally this is a card that you see somebody is kind of weighing things out and offering assistance, but weighing the scales. So there can be a lot of like tit for tat with this card, but it can also be about being generous, sharing, gratitude, community, mutual help. So like I said, you're going to get pulled at all different angles. I think what's really amazing is that the sun is in your 8th house. So it's already indicating something is about to change with work. And it's incentivizing you to like want to get out there and do the work that you need to do. But also, be mindful what you put out is going to come back to you with that card. So if you're just, taking, and then you're asking for help, you're going to have people who are going to be like, no, I'm not helping you. Versus giving and also, over giving, and you can feel like you're giving to the point where you're doing too much and you're not getting the support that you need, you may pull back a little bit. So you're definitely going to feel this give and take and like what's kind of out of whack over the next like week or two. Okay. Good luck. Good luck with work. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for work changes, especially when Venus goes retrograde this summer. All right, so now we've got Sag and Sag rising. Mars will be moving through Leo in your natal 9th house. And it's a fellow sister sign. So if you're a Sag rising, you're going to be experiencing trines to your ascendant. It's going to kind of motivate you a little bit, get you a little bit more active. And the ninth house deals with travel, right? Education, philosophy, getting out there and exploring a little bit. It can be about education. It can be about your beliefs. It can be about you being more eager and optimistic to explore and have fun, especially because Mars has connections to your 5th house. So I could see this as you being like, I want to go on a trip. I want to get out there and go and do some fun, daring, exciting things, getting on airplanes and all that fun stuff. But it may be a time where you're also searching for, you know, a teacher, a guru. You're looking where you want to go to school. You're exploring where you may potentially want to learn what you want to learn more about, because Mars has connections to the 12th. So there can be a sense of like wanting to go and study something abroad or things that are more spiritual or esoteric. That can come up here as well. But Mars off the bat, obviously, as you know, is making a number of aspects. So let's talk about the positive first. Trine to your Senate is getting you feeling active. The sextile to the Sun in the 7th means that you're kind of busy with a partner, so that's fun. The squares do make me feel like you need to be mindful of changing your schedule. You need to be mindful of health and also just challenges revolving around 6th house. So daily routine, getting work done, habits, and maybe that interfering with your ability to kind of like cut loose and get out there and do things. But what you've been learning is to kind of restructure your routine so that way you feel like you have more freedom to do what you want to do. And obviously the heavy opposition between Mars and Pluto. And I feel like this can be like where difficult conversations can come up revolving around your belief or your philosophy. And it can be like fear that's running the show. And you want to catch yourself when you're quick to be like, I can't do that. That's not possible. This won't work. Mars going into your 9th house is really inspiring you to like believe that anything is possible. It may also open the door for romantic connections with people far away or in foreign lands, or meeting people while you're traveling. That can definitely happen because of Mars's connection to your 5th house. But any planets that you have in Sag will trine. And so I think that that's going to be really helpful. And, you know, it's the 9th house. So it has the Sagittarian house. And I think that you're going to be feeling inspired to want to take risks and learning to get out of your comfort zone. And like some of the change is going to come from leaving your immediate environment and getting out into a place that like you are not as familiar with. And that may potentially give you kind of the break that you need and the change in your perspective through having a little bit more adventure. Especially with Saturn in your 4th house, you need out. Let's take a look and let's see what the cards say for you. The card that I got for you is the 10 of Swords. Which is a difficult card. This is a card that is about completions and endings. It is about feeling, you know, a painful ending or being stabbed in the back, feeling betrayal. Interesting because Mars does have connections to your 12th house. So I wonder if this is about disappointment revolving around a romantic partner or a creative project, and kind of feeling like it's like a failed launch. Be very careful with Pluto in your 3rd house, that if you are trying to launch websites, online projects, things like that, it's not the most ideal energy for a launch. It can also be disappointments revolving around travel or disappointments revolving around education and completions. And so I'm wondering, because Pluto is the final line, it's like, do you finally decide that you're going to break through something that has been mentally agonizing? And do you finally get a break and decide to let something go? I'm hoping that that is the case with some of the more positive aspects that you have in the chart, because I do feel like it's about being able to get outside of your comfort zone and the willingness to kind of let the past be in the past. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. Mars will be moving through Leo in your natal 8th house. It's moving through your natal 8th house, where Mars is actually pretty comfortable. Mars definitely likes being in the 8th house. So The 8th house deals with obviously like your joint resources, taxes, inheritances, but the 8th house is where money is due. So rent's due, bills are due, credit card bills are due, loans, all that fun stuff. So be mindful of that. There is a sense of having to pay things back with this transit. Mars is connected to your 11th house of goals and friends and associations, and your 4th house of home and family. So I'm wondering with, Mars being in the 8th house, is there some kind of quarrel over home, property, resources, inheritance? I've heard a lot of Capricorn risings telling me this is happening, trying to sort out an estate, or, going back and forth with siblings, with Saturn in your 3rd about what's owed to you. And there definitely is this feeling of like arguing or like fighting it out in terms of what is yours. And so I would watch for that. That is a theme. If it's not that, then it's definitely going to be about being acutely aware of the fact that you need access to other people's resources. So there may be a sense of looking at mortgages, loans, extending, credit lines of credit. That can come up also, especially if you're trying to kind of pay for cost of living, or if you need to be helping a family member pay for something. And with the squares happening in your financial houses, to me, it seems like you're trying to get creative about the ways that you can make more money. So that way you're feeling like you're not just going through periods of making money just to pay things off and break even. You're trying to figure out how to get ahead. So with all these planets in your 5th house trying your ascendant, you're trying to think creatively about how you can drum something up that you can make, perform, create, sell, that is going to be different, unusual, but very beautiful, and maybe even indulgent. So I could see a lot of people turning hobbies into like full-blown hustles as a means to be able to pay stuff off. But there is a sense of, this whole summer trying to figure out how to figure that out financially, where the money's going to come from. Do you get a business loan? Do you work through your savings? So very significant energies here revolving around your relationship with money. And now that Pluto is in your 2nd house, your value system is somehow changing in a very significant way. So when Mars comes and makes an opposition to that, other people are challenging your financial power and possibly saying, hey, it's time for me to be paid back. So just watch for that. That's definitely something that can happen. I do think also that, the sextiles to the sun are kind of indicating that it might be that there's somebody helping you work through these issues. So somebody helping you complete your taxes, somebody helping you kind of, fight to, close a case, or to, get your insurance to cover something. That can be something else that can come up with Mars being in the 8th house, having conflict with insurance companies. So if there's, claims on a home or on a vehicle or anything like that, or you're going after, the benefits that you need, there is this push to ensure that you get what is owed to you. So let's see what's going on there. Know that Mars has a lot of strength in the 8th house, and I'm really curious to see when Mars and Venus square Uranus, because it might be a bit of like a back and forth, but then ultimately later in the summer, you end up kind of getting what is owed to you. The card that I get is the Temperance card, which makes sense. It's all a matter of timing. Balance, harmony, healing, patience, purpose, serenity, tranquility, peace, and calm. So people may not be so peaceful or calm with you about financial matters. Expect that the first couple of days of the transit in May. But I have a feeling, like I said, when Venus and Mars square Uranus, that's when things are going to start kind of changing, and you're going to realize that it's going to take some patience to kind of work out some of these financial kinks. But ultimately, I do think that things are going to come back to you, especially when you see like Venus come into Leo. And then when we see Venus, start forming some of those squares to Uranus, it can be about kind of ironing out the issues, but it looks like it's just going to take a little bit more time. Good luck. It's a great card also for emotional, spiritual, psychological healing. If this is less financial and more psychological, it can be really wonderful for working through issues of grief, loss, and also pain, right, or trauma. So it can help you move through that as well. Good luck, Capricorn. We got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You got Mars moving through Leo in your 7th house, in your opposite house. Oh boy, this is big energy for everybody, but for the fixed signs especially. And you've got Mars that's moving through the 7th house. So off the bat, there's lots of action with other people, okay? So these other people can be Leo, so it can be boyfriends, girlfriends. It can also be the relationship with your children or younger people. Now, the 7th house does deal with relationships, partnerships, right? But this can be clients, this can be your counselors, therapists, and Mars is combative. So when it's in the 7th house, there's lots of action, and Mars immediately comes into an opposition with Pluto in your sign, which means a lot of you Aquarius and Aquarius risings are going to be like, I'm having a crisis with my partner, with my kids. I'm having conflict. People are not liking the fact that I'm not changing, or I'm not backing down, or, you know, I'm done with them. And a lot of you guys are going to be calling me being like, I need a reading, because your 7th house is your astrologer. So there is a sense of feeling like I need to connect with somebody who can kind of give me some kind of support. This can create fights and, you know, full-on temper tantrums and brawls with other people. So just expect that other people are going to be kind of coming in hot the first like week or so of this transit. Mars has to do with communication and words. It also has to do with siblings or vehicles, or neighbors. So if neighbors come at you complaining about your kids or your dog or where you parked your car, try to diffuse the situation. Equally, you know, angry texts, angry phone calls. Maybe you're driving in traffic and there's some people that are, you know, kind of having road rage. Just be mindful that people will go toe to toe with you. And I don't think a lot of people realize how willing you are to kind of just like unleash, right, with Pluto in your sign. This energy is also connected to your 10th house of career and reputation. So it's possible that you've got a situation with other people that are not just attacking you, but they're attacking your reputation, or you feel like they're being combative at work, or they're creating problems with bosses. Maybe it has to do with like a romantic partner or a spouse that is being bossy and kind of telling you what to do, and you're like, nope. And it can also be about you trying to connect with, like I said, children or younger people, and they may push back, and you may be having to really kind of keep your composure with Pluto in your sign and just not blow up on people. It's especially strong also when Mars comes into a square with Uranus, because I think that's where there can be so much conflict going on with another person that it's causing problems in the home, or maybe pushing somebody to feel like they need to kind of come or go from the house. I'm just picking up that time again so I can tell you when that is. Around June 25th. So make a note of that, because Mars will be squaring planets in your 4th house. It'll be squaring Uranus. What is beneficial for you is that you do have off the bat the Sun in Gemini, so it's trining Pluto. So you're really learning to change and transform your heart, your nurturing capabilities, the way that you express yourself. You're becoming really passionate about what you love and how you feel, but you're learning how to express it differently. And it is in a sextile to Mars. So if you're somebody who's like, I'm single, I'm not in a relationship, this can be so big. There could be people who come in to your life, and suddenly relationships get very active and romance gets very active. I think the only challenge here is that, you know, you're going to be connecting or meeting with people who are going to live in other places, and they're going to say, would you move? There can also be action with partners or other people who are saying, I will move to you, you move to me, or how can we be closer together? Because all of this energy with the Venus retrograde, with the Mars transit, is going to square both Jupiter as well as Uranus. So there is a lot of learning how to better get along with other people while you're going through a period of self-transformation. And I think that as you're going through this Pluto transit, it could be relatives, it can be partners. They may not know how to respond to some of the changes that you are, creating within yourself. Pluto can be about taking your power back. So as Pluto is in your sign briefly for another, couple weeks, there can be other people that are like, I don't know how to respond to this. I don't know how to respond to the way that you're acting. Like maybe you've come to a point in certain relationships with people where you're like, enough is enough. And so people can get really really aggravated when they realize that you're not going to play the game anymore. So the good news is that there's lots of action around relationships. And so if you're willing to kind of go and play ball and be active and be out there and be creative, you'll have a good time. Stay tuned though, because you are going to have that Venus retrograde. That's going to be in, end of July going into August. And I have a feeling that those of you guys who are single, like relationships might pick up very quickly. And then when Mars comes in for the retrograde, when Venus comes in for the retrograde in July and it starts squaring planets in your 4th house, it's going to be like, well, we've started this thing. What do we do? Like, do I move? Do you move? Are you moving in? Are we going to be together? Like, what's the plan? So there will be a sense of being like, hold on, let's like really think about this before we take the next couple steps forward. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see. Keep in mind also that Mars connecting to your 10th house is very much about your reputation. So similar to Leo and Aquarius have this happening in very visible houses. So it can definitely affect your relationships, your reputation, and your public image. The card that I got for you is the Empress. Ooh. I think this can be about mother figures, you being a mom if you are a mom, maybe embracing the possibility or the potential of making preparations for that. It can be talking about honoring and nurturing yourself. And so with Jupiter square, with Mars opposed, I feel like there can be this sense of being like, no, I need to do what's best for me. I need to do what's best for me. And people will kind of push your buttons, and it's learning to be more nurturing and compassionate towards yourself as you're going through a period of change. Creation of life, abundance. This can also be about more divine feminine energy, care and nurturing, and really kind of tapping into that earthly element. So it's cool with like Jupiter and Uranus in your 4th house. Some of you guys are moving, you're expanding your home. And maybe that means that you're just kind of learning how to now kind of live in a new place or get used to a new neighborhood or, getting used to living with another person. So be gentle with yourself as you go through this period, because it's going to take a little bit of time for you to adapt. Okay? Good luck, Aquarius. We got Pisces and Pisces rising. Mars will be entering into the sign of Leo, where it will spend several weeks in your natal 6th house. Okay, so good news is that Mars likes to get things done in the 6th house. All right, so it really pays to have a to-do list. Mars has connections to your 2nd house of money, resources, and possessions. This can also be about food. And Mars has connections to your 9th house, which has to do with travel, education, and philosophy. So for Mars to be spending an extended period of time in your natal 6th house, in the sign of Leo, I think it's going to be about finding people who can teach you, guide you, or help educate you about health, fitness, organization, what you're eating. It can also be about you taking more action revolving around better organizing your finances, or getting somebody to help like guide you when it comes to like making investments. Mars in the 6th house wants to work out. It wants to have an outlet. It wants to have a job to do. It has something to serve. So being in the sign of Leo, it may feel good for you to be like, I'm going to go volunteer, or I'm going to, pick up or organize or clean more often, especially taking care of children. I do think it can be about you making the time and like perfecting things that you create. So if you're an artist, I could see you being like, okay, I'm going to spend more time, working with these energies. Working up a sweat with Mars in the 6th house, saunas and going running and working with like infrared, or just like spending time out in the sun. That can definitely happen as well. I think that there's a lot to learn about health and wellness here, because, the 6th house, while it deals with the physical body, the 12th house deals with like the spiritual body. So to watch Mars come into an opposition with Pluto, you're realizing that the changes and the transformations that are going on behind the scenes need to match the physical. So this can be a time where you're segueing out of being like, I've been doing all the emotional and the spiritual kind of building. Now I'm going more into, wanting to build a routine, or wanting to, get a job, or wanting to consistently go to the gym. And Mars will square your traditional chart ruler right off the bat. So it tells me that, you're running around, you're busy, you're doing things. Be mindful that there is much more of like being accident prone with Mars in the 6th. especially with Mars square your first house ruler. So don't be rushing around. Don't be texting and driving. You shouldn't be doing that anyway. But like really with some of these aspects, you're more prone to having accidents. So do slow down and be mindful, especially because there can be like accidents that can affect your body with Mars quincunx Saturn. Mars quincunx the ascendant. And it can impact your body. So that's one aspect, that's another aspect. And then when Mars comes into a square with Uranus, that's another aspect. Slow down, take your time, focus on finding better habits, right? That would be my advice. And also, like, if you have a lot of work to do, if you have, you know, a lot to get off your to-do list, if you work in like a creative field, I think that all of these things are going to come up throughout this Mars transit. It'll be interesting also to see when Venus gets here, because I feel like that's like after you've done the work, going through and perfecting everything and making it look more beautiful. So I could see Mars being here as like, I'm building, you know, I'm building things out, or I'm creating the project, but you might put the finishing touches on it when Venus arrives. Also, anything in regards to like cutting, burning, severing. So if, you know, you need to go and see somebody who can help you, you know, remove something with a laser, or have something kind of biopsied or taken off, that could be happening with the Mars transit. This could also be a time where you're going and focusing on working with people who can kind of help service you. So I think of like new hairstylists, you could bring in new doctors, you could bring in new trainers. All of these people would be kind of coming in during this transit. Just keep in mind that when Venus goes retrograde here, you may realize, oh, that's not the right assistant, that's not the right, you know, hairstylist, that's definitely, you know, not the person who I want, you know, training or watching my pets. There might be something that changes in direction. So you might rush into something with the Mars transit only to realize like, okay, actually, I want to make a change. So yeah, be careful with your body. Anything that has to do with like cutting or severing, or anything that's being removed from your body, or, you know, building muscle is like a big thing with Mars square Jupiter. Don't be trying to do something too quickly or too fast, because it can actually create an injury. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see what the cards have to say. I get the Two of Pentacles. The Two of Pentacles, which can talk about having your hands full, doing too much at one time, multitasking, decisions, weighing your options, multiple priorities, which I definitely think is a theme. Because the third house is like this mercurial house where it's like you can have so much going on at one time. Jupiter, North Node, you know, Mercury, Uranus, you're traveling a lot, learning a lot, reading a lot, you're taking in a lot of information. And if you're trying to do that while you're doing something else, it's not going to pay to be trying to kind of like walk and chew gum, because it's a balancing act. It can mean that you're just taking on too much mentally, and like you're a little bit kind of just frazzled, and because you're trying to, you know, balance things, you might realize that you're just overwhelmed. But having multiple priorities, so it does seem that you're like, I'm doing this, but I'm also doing that. And I know you're not going to change, but you don't want to wait until you have like a Mars-Uranus accident, or you don't want to wait until you have a Venus retrograde to use the astrology to get you to slow down. Okay, so just take your time, don't rush through things. And hopefully that's helpful for you, my Pisces. Let me know how that plays out for you. That can be a really colorful injury, because, you know, Mars in conjunct Saturn, definitely I've seen a number of people have some muscle tears or have some accidents that they need to recover from. So take it easy. All right, guys, that's it for me for the Mars and Leo video. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and hit the like button. I really appreciate it. You guys make it possible for me to keep doing what I'm doing. The more that the channel grows, the more content and the more time I can dedicate to this. It's a two-man team, so it takes a lot of work and effort to put these long, high-quality format videos out for you guys, but we love doing it. We wouldn't have it any other way. I will be here tomorrow. I'll post the link in my community tab. if you would like to get a astrology reading. So we'll be here tomorrow night, Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I recommend signing up early if you'd like to get a reading. That way you're in the queue and you're guaranteed a reading, or you can join my memberships. And pretty much for the price of a reading, you're going to be able to support my channel all month long and be guaranteed to get a reading first. You don't have to wait. Even if you just want to come and hang out, come join us. It'd be nice to see you. And please, yes, let me know how you're feeling with these energies below, especially if you have some of these fixed squares. I have my fingers crossed all week long because it's all squaring my natal Mars in Scorpio. So I'm anticipating there's gonna be some drama, but I'll just put my helmet on and hope for the best. All right, until I guess Friday, I will see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week, and you guys take care.